So, again, welcome everybody. Getting just more and more momentum and excitement about getting ready for school. I also know that in this time and in these circumstances that excitement can also beget more concerns and more questions and whatnot. And if you know me at all, you know I'm an avid question asker. I love to problem solve and solve puzzles. And I will say that the questions that our community, meaning you, our families, are asking, and teachers are asking, and even students are asking, are really helping us. So please continue to do that. And I'm going to put a plug. Also, continue to read and reread all the things that we send out. It's a lot of information in the way that we're having to communicate lots of different changes. So please continue to check your email, check the COVID resources update site. That's there. I know that there'll likely be another addendum coming out to the opening plan, which is to be expected as we shift and flex and add to the plan. So, okay, it's 4:05 and we're going to get started with the official. So I'm going to say, because I have a friend. Thank you, Amy Beth Sherman. We have a couple people here that are here to help answer questions. Barry Davis, our head of school, is here. Matt Getting, the associate head of school for advancement, is also here. We're not all in the same place because of our technical issues, but we're all kind of pushed out in different places in the school. I'm in the beautiful library. Mrs. Amy Shepard, who would normally be in the library, is signing in from home. She just gave us a wave. And then Amy Beth Sherman, who's helping me with slides here. She's also going to moderate questions for us, and she's also here to answer questions about technology innovation if people have them. And they're all here to support me, and I thank them for being here. So, all right. And we'll get started. We are gonna talk several things here. I'm just gonna go through some things kind of fast. This presentation will be available to you. It's kind of a framework versus lots of information. I'll follow up early next week with something that has all of the details that we've talked about here today. And we're going to start with community norms and safety first. Then we're going to go into distance learning, outdoor learning, on-campus learning. Then we're going to talk just a little bit about arrival dismissal, since that's coming up quickly, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A. I'm hoping that I can answer many of your questions beforehand, and then you'll come up with new ones for us. So, all right. So we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. So if there was a slide, all of the slides are important. But this slide is to me, says a lot to me without saying a whole lot. So I'm going to expand just a little bit. So we have community norms at St. Anne's. Whether you're brand new to the community or you've been here for a long time, something drew you to St. Anne's and you've experienced it, even if it's in a small way, in the dealings that you've had this summer or in the last week with talking to us about joining the school. And we value, the core values of St. Anne's are respect, responsibility, and compassion, and everyone here lives them. We're not perfect, but we try to live them. And if the living of them doesn't end up the way we want to, then we back up, we reflect, we come up with a plan, and we start over. The same thing, so those core values are even more important maybe in COVID-19 with the first bullet there about quarantine and limiting exposure. So between now and when school starts, and hopefully you've already started this, many of you probably have. I want us to help our community be successful with coming back to school, and that means you don't have to quarantine necessarily, but that word has certain meaning to us about being careful, about overexposing, about following. Mask wearing, hand washing, hand hygiene, social distancing, physical distancing, and limiting exposure. So I guess I'm putting in a plea here because I want it to go really well for all of us, for all of our students. Everyone has a different level of concern with this, but by all of us coming together and having community responsibility and collective responsibility for ensuring that we are making sure that all of our kids and all of our teachers, and when they go home and when your kids come home, all of you as safe as we possibly can. And, being a good friend sometimes says, I don't think a sleepover is a good idea right now. Or, being a good friend says, you know what, instead of meeting inside, let's go take a walk, on campus and be 6 foot apart, or let's go do something like that. And I know I'm telling you things you already know, but I wanted to put that out there because it's something we're thinking about all the time. And it's not just adults. Students are thinking the same thing. They're wise. Some of our community norms will add to that this year. We'll have pre-screening. That will be through an app that will have more information will be coming out about that. It'll allow you to take your child's temperature and answer some screening questions within an hour of them leaving the house. And it will allow us to, again, maintain safety and health here at school, but also give you an idea. Dr. Priya Patel, one of our consulting physicians and also an alum parent, gave us a few hints about that. That information will be coming out soon. And so you can look at those details. Mask wearing, you want to make sure that your child has a mask to wear and an extra. Please make sure that just like everything else, they're labeled so that we can make sure it gets home, and they need to have one that can be washed every day and have a clean one for school and an extra one. Please, 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 please. Sometimes kids think it's fun to have a mask that looks like a clown or looks like an animal. And I would just ask that maybe those are masks that get worn at home or some other place. We have young friends here, and sometimes that can scare them. And even though we're not going to be going back and forth and crossing, our small friends will still see us when we come in the mornings and when we go out to car line in the afternoon. And we might be seen on campus if there are students who are choosing to wear a mask outside, and as long as we're social distanced. We know we keep the triumvirate here as hand hygiene, physical distancing, and mask wearing as a big focus here. I know we keep saying the same thing, and you're probably tired of hearing us say it, but it's part of our community norms and part of us building that in. It's going to sink in deep with us. We announced the other day that we'll have both nurses on campus at the beginning of school. We'll have someone inside and someone outside during arrival, so that if we need to do a second check on someone because their temperature is high, we can do a secondary check, oral check, and make sure that we are adhering to all the things we want to. And wanted you to know that the school always has emergency procedures for inside and outside for all different scenarios, from tornadoes and earthquakes and fire drills, nuclear drills, to active shooter in the building, active shooter outside the building. We're adding to those because even though we've spent quite a bit of time outside, we'll be spending more time outside, and we've built that in as part of our professional development next week during in-service. So we're committing quite a bit of time to that, thought and time to that. So that, coupled with the fact that all of our teachers have a walkie-talkie, always have when they go outside, even if it's to go outside for 10 minutes to take a break, we carry walkie-talkies with us. So I just wanted to kind of go over those norms. Some of those are the same, some of those are added, and just bring your attention right back to the top one about limiting exposure with your kids and others. Being a good community member means that we're making sure that everyone's safe as we possibly can. So, okay, so thank you. Next slide, Amy. Thank you. All right. A couple things here. There's a lot on this slide, and I want to tell you, so we have been thinking all summer long about, well, first of all, we've committed ourselves to on-campus learning and outdoor learning in big ways here. That doesn't mean that we haven't been thinking about distance learning. We know that teachers cannot, not for any amount of time, they can't be online teachers like they were in the fall. And if you're a new 5th grade family or a new family to St. Anne's, our middle school teachers did a phenomenal job with online, even in the remote emergency setting, online learning. It is a full-time job to be an online teacher. And what we've committed to here is being full-time on campus, in-person outdoor learning teachers, but we are going to have a distance learning piece. So I'm going to have, just so you know, because I wanted you to connect a name with a face. Many of you already know this famous person on campus who is, she's our director of DEI, she's our librarian, she's also going to coordinate our distance learning for families who are uncomfortable, are feeling uncomfortable about on-campus learning, or perhaps also if you have to go into a quarantine situation that's an extended quarantine situation, that she could coordinate that with a team of folks. We also have a commitment for some extra some extra resources so that we can have some extra personnel resources to help with this, because these are big jobs, and we want to make sure that we can offer your child. We can't replicate what goes on in the classroom, but we can ensure that your child's learning is progressing in the ways that it needs to here at St. Anne's. So Amy, do you mind just unmuting for a second and saying a hello? If you choose to sing a song, you could do that too.
No, I'm not going to sing, but I will say hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Shepard. I am the director of DEI and the librarian, as Jill said, and I'm going to coordinate learning for our students who need to learn from home with our teachers at school. So that plan, it's a newly formed plan. We're super excited about it, but it's still in development. And I'll be holding a Google chat, a coffee chat very soon so that we can go over the details of that plan. Those families that I know are interested in distance learning, I am working very closely with. So please feel free to reach out to me with questions or concerns via email or phone, however you feel comfortable. But I look forward to working with everyone. We understand the need is real for many of our families who need to learn from home. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Right. Thank you, Amy. And I'm going to keep taking us back to the bullet that was about limiting exposure and quarantining. Like we have families, we have students, we have adults, we have teachers, we have people who have underlying health issues, and so these are some of the reasons that we've made the decisions we had. So as Amy said, the plan for distance learning, that plan wouldn't start until at least September 14th. So 2 weeks into school, we have to find out. This is a new setting for all of us, COVID-19 and learning. So we don't know what we don't know yet. And so we're gonna do some learning on campus. Amy and her team are gonna be doing some planning and coordinating and figuring that out, and then we'll launch that. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy Shepard. Carrie Wilson is our director of outdoor education, and she is in the middle of not surprisingly, she's out in the woods, away from campus, taking a little bit of downtime with her family, and her reception wasn't such that she could join us today. But she is our contact for outdoor learning. We are committed to a lot of outdoor learning, a lot of outdoor community building and time outside. We know on a lot of different levels it's a really good thing for our kids. It's good for our adults, good in general. Teachers have been on campus working unbelievably hard to prepare so that they have spaces inside but outside also, so that and we have a lot of flexible spaces too, so that there's options. With kids, with everyone in the building in masks when we're in the building, we're going to need, not only are we planning to go outside, but we're going to need it. So we're excited about that. And we have 3 separate days of professional development next week built into our schedule. One is a full day. Other days are part of the days. We're working with forestry. Someone that we've worked with before is coming in to help, just help our teachers kind of do some more translating of what they normally do to outside. Like I said, we've worked with 2 years ago she came. We've had materials that we've been using last year. But we have a lot of good stuff built in, and emergency procedures is also built into that also for outdoor education. So we're really excited. And then on-campus learning, and I have a few slides to follow this. So you can see who the contacts are. I'm the contact for on-campus learning. I'm going to go over some information about pods, homerooms, and schedules and try to help you understand kind of where our thinking is. And where our planning's been going. And I'm a consummate planner, maybe a serial planner, and having to wait for all the fluidity of the circumstances is, needless to say, I had trouble waiting till 4:05 to get started. So you can imagine for me, this has been challenging, but I love a good puzzle. And anytime we have the opportunity to think through student learning and what's best for students and, and new ways to do things, the nerd in me just gets really excited about that. So I think that I'm going to say next slide, and we'll go on to talk about pods. So I can help you understand a bit of how we will move. Yeah, how we'll move in the building or not move. Okay. So let me just start in the morning. And ideally, I'd have a map for you, and I do uploaded, but I couldn't get it to my slideshow today. I apologize, but that'll be in the materials that I send out that talk more about just coming into the building. But once a student arrives, has been checked at home, has been checked temperature before they get out of the car, is cleared to come in the building, hand sanitizes, and head straight to their classroom with directional traffic in the hallways, they may make a quick stop at their locker, but it'll be a quick stop. We'll have teachers posted in classrooms in the hallways to move folks along, greet students, but also move them along. They will go to their classroom. Classrooms are in pods in the middle school. If this is a repeat for you, for some of you, I apologize, but I know that we have new families on the call today. So our 5th and 6th graders occupy a 4 classroom pod in the middle school hallway. And then there's a separation between the 7th and 8th grade pod that also has 4 classrooms, and a little bit further down the hallway is yet another 7th, 8th grade classroom and the music room. In general, the 5th and 6th graders will stay in their pod and teachers will travel to them. And 7th and 8th grade will stay in their pod and teachers will travel to them. There are a few exceptions. When you come in and arrival in the morning, exits in the afternoon. If you needed to see the nurse, you would travel through the hallway. If you need to use the restroom inside, you'll travel. Our teachers are creating plans for that, for making sure that we have limited number of people using the facilities, and also in the hallway we don't yet. The YMCA is still using our space, so we haven't put down our directional signs or our markers or our cones or anything like that yet. But people will be separated and related arts teachers will travel to them. When teachers are taking students outside, whatever that's for class, for lunch, for recess, they will travel out certain doors. The 5th and 6th grade pod will use 2 sets of doors that will take them into either the grassy area where the back patio is, or out into the middle school recess area. They'll be the only folks using that. The 7th and 8th grade students will use the doors at the end of their hallway. So during the day, there's very limited crossing of people. I'm thinking about contact tracing. So, and while they're moving, the 5th grade team, the 5th grade is made up of 4 advisors, and that's 2 homerooms. Each homeroom has 2 advisories in it. They will go to class. They'll rotate through their rooms. They'll go to class with their homeroom. So those 2 advisories together. That's for contact tracing. I've actually worked really hard here to mix kids up, but COVID-19 means that we don't mix kids up right now. That's not to say that at Christmas time, we might say, hey, we're gonna flip-flop people because they've had 14 days to quarantine, and maybe we'll flip people and match different advisories. We're thinking about the different options, but for now we're gonna stay in our small group of 12, 13, 14 people. And classes will be the same. Let's see, in 7th grade would be the same. When kids go to instrumental, we won't be playing any woodwind instruments, but when they go to instrumental, they will need to travel to the music room. That's the insulated room. But teachers are going to be guiding them and keeping 6 feet of distance and not crossing over. And we also know that as long as we're going to discourage them hanging out together, but crossing in the hallway and staying in the group that you're in is the safest way for us to do that. So I wanted you to kind of see how that's going to go. You'll notice on this screen that if you're in 7th and 8th grade, you'll see there's a math teacher there that I'm hiring. We recently had one of our teachers resigned, took a position. I'm happy for the teacher. Sad for us because Mr. Okocha was a great teacher here, but we are hiring and have been interviewing. So that's why that says that there. Okay, next slide, if you would, please. All right, here's an example schedule in the middle school. Again, you don't have to memorize, you don't have to take screenshots of it, this little tiny thing, and try to blow it up. I'll make the presentation open to you. This is just a random schedule that I made, but it's representative of how we're gonna go. You'll notice that the blocks are no longer 45 minutes, they're an hour long. We did that because we know things are going to take longer. We know that our middle schoolers are going to take the time before they move from a classroom to wipe down with Clorox wipes and disinfect, do hand hygiene. They'll be doing that throughout the time. They'll do it when they come in the building. The same thing outside, there are going to be stations where their outdoor learning spaces are, will also have hand sanitizer and hand washing stations. So there'll be ample opportunities for them to continue to do that. And let's see. It looks like when I pasted it in it, the math teacher in me feels like I'm like committing a math error here, because all the blocks that are the same size should be the same number of time, same amount of time. But it looks like when I put it in, I like stretched it improperly. The 10:30 block is definitely an hour block. Snack used to happen at 10:30, and the way the teachers are going to navigate that is that they're going to keep the 9:30 class for a few extra minutes, take snack, have it on, and then they'll move on to their 10:30 class. So that, and then 11:30, you'll notice that's actually a 90-minute block. If there's a class in that block, then that teacher will have lunch with the students. There's some flexibility. They'll have lunch and recess with their students in there. So you'll notice that we have a 30-minute homeroom block at the beginning of every day for every class. That's the same in the lower school also. And then we have 15 minutes of homeroom at the end of the day. That's the same in lower school. We want to make sure that we are bookending and making sure we get our eyes on kids during the day to see how they're doing. For all my students who are here today, hello, it's really nice to see your faces. And so we wanted to maintain as much of the normalcy of the schedule that students had before, but also recognize that the additional challenges during COVID-19 would require some extra time. When you expand the blocks, that means that there are fewer blocks to put classes in. So that means there's some changes to our related arts classes. I think that we're going to go to the next slide, please. This is Spanish and related arts learning. So this will tell you kind of how the classes might look and how many times a week they're meeting. And it gives you an idea of what's going on. Because I had fewer blocks, I had to get creative about how I met the needs of students and teachers, because no teacher wants to see their student less times in a week. And so this is what you'll see. Now, every day something changes. And so no promises. It should look very much like this, because this is kind of a philosophical thinking rather than an exact like recipe, but it should look very much like this. A lot of good numbers. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to take a look at it, because I feel like people are staring, which is good at it. And then again, know that you're going to have access to this. I should say, oh, by the way, if you see a mistake, let me know. And we're going to go from here. Something that you won't see on here is chorus. And that's because singing for right now is not something that in the middle school that we're going to do as a formal class right now. It's the same with playing woodwind instruments. We're not going to do that either. And that's not because it's not important. I was a chorus and instrumental person forever. But it is a space right now that we're going to just kind of table for right now and see how things go and get going. And I know that's disappointing. And just know that it's sitting right here. Like if my phone, it's like right here. Okay.
Jill, can you clarify the difference between asynchronous and virtual, and
Sure.
explain
Yep,
what
sure
live
can.
virtual means?
Thank you. Thank you. I don't actually have the chat up because Amy's moderating for me, because if I have it up, then I can't pay attention. That's just my own weakness there. I'm having challenges just admitting people. Yep. In Spanish, you're going to notice in 5th grade, there's 2 in-person and 1 asynchronous. Senor Duffy will have 2 in-person on campus, hour long. It used to be 45 minutes. And with no passing time, it used to feel like 38.5 minutes. But she'll have 2 full hours in-person meetings with students, and then there'll be an asynchronous lesson. We learned a lot last spring about using digital tools for kids to share, demonstrate their learning and practice their dialogue and their Spanish speaking skills and their comprehension skills, and also their cultural competency for that matter. So because I made the hour-long blocks and Amina had fewer blocks to fill, we had to get creative with how we're going to do that. So in 5th grade Spanish, we'll have 2 in-person, that means on campus, and 1 asynchronous, which would be everyone would be would be off campus. In 6th grade, the same. We'll have 2 in person and 1 asynchronous. That's with Senor Caro. Somebody, yeah, there we go. In 7th grade, thank you. Someone needs to mute. Thank you. In 7th grade, hang on. I feel like you guys can't hear me. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly? Because I feel like I'm talking through traffic. Okay, well, I'll just keep talking through traffic. In 7th grade, we're going to have 1 in person on campus. So an hour meet with 7th grade in person on campus. There'll be 2 live virtual where the teacher will be teaching from home to the class during the day in an hour-long block. That'll happen twice during the week. I'll have Senora Costales will be facilitating that classroom of students while Senora Caro is teaching in real time virtually to the class. And then there'll be 1 asynchronous lesson for 7th grade. And then 8th grade has 2 person on campus and 2 asynchronous. So that was a good question. Thank you.
And Jill, did you clarify when will the asynchronous Spanish class take place and how long will those be?
So when we're asynchronous and we're online, probably be 30 minutes at max to be online together. The teacher is going to look at, we need to see how this is going to work when we come back and test it and try it. So I'm actually not going to answer the when it's going to happen question or pardon me, or exactly how much time, but been doing too much talking. But typically 30 minutes is actually for our age group of student, a 30-minute block is about as long as that we're going to be online together before we start to lose the efficacy of the time together. That doesn't mean that there isn't additional work that goes with that.
And one last clarity for Spanish. So there is 1 teacher in the classroom and the second is teaching the class in doing so over Google Meet. They've specified Zoom, but it would be over
Google Meet. Yes, ma'am. Yep. That's exactly right.
Another question, is Chaplain Hannah teach religion?
So yeah, in grades 6 and 7, the same as last year and the year before, Chaplain Hannah will teach religion. In grades 5th and 8th, it's integrated by Mr. Edwards in 5th grade as he did last year, and by Mr. Brown in 8th grade.
Is there library in the upper school?
So, Ms. Shepherd, do you want to answer the library question, or do you want me to go ahead and answer that?
You can go ahead.
Okay. That's a great question about library. So we're going to integrate the librarian into the classroom, working with not just solo library. She's going to, Ms. Shepherd's going to take the skills and competencies and the kind of the projects they've done and work with other teachers and see how we can integrate those into the classes. We had library for our new families. We had library in the past in 5th and 6th grade, not in 7th and 8th. It was once a week. But that's how we're going to try to meet that need. Thank you for asking that.
Jill, I can say that one thing that I'm working on that's new, I'm setting up accounts for each of our students. So students can go online from home or from wherever and reserve library books. And then I can fill those orders. I can deliver library books to the students so that they will still be able to check out books. And 5th through 8th grade, those books will come back in. They will sit for 72 hours. They will be cleaned and reshelved. And so kids will be able to get library books probably at a 1 to 2 week turnaround time. So like borrow your book for a week or 2, and then you can get more books, kind of like we were doing regularly.
Okay. Great, thank you for that. Okay, we ready for the next slide? Ta-da, no, I was like, wait a second, where's my last slide? Okay, arrival and dismissal. So this is really more operational than it is anything else. And I feel like I should get closer. I'm getting dark. It's getting dark outside. To you, the caregiver, driver, it probably will not look a whole lot different outside, other than your child's temperature is going to be taken before they get out of the car. For arrival, it's going to look very similar. You're gonna, of course, in the morning, you're going to pre-screen, and we'll get that information as you pre-screen. So we'll have that report. you're going to come to school. You're going to drive up in the car line just like you normally do. You're going to roll down the window, or the student will roll down the window and wait to have their temperature taken. Once they've been cleared, then they'll exit the car, and they will enter the middle school will enter the building through the middle school doors. Because of the nature of taking temperatures, it's going to automatically not slow down. It's going to meet out students in distance wise. And so they'll go and enter. We'll have hand sanitizer for them to go to do that, so they can practice hand hygiene going in. They'll go down to their classroom and they'll wait. We'll go over with them, just like anytime we're building new routines and new habits. We're going to recommend that students have a personal reading book. So that kind of goes back to also what Ms. Shepherd talked about checking out library books, but have a personal reading book, because if you drop your child off at 7:40, that's our new drop-off time is 7:40. When you drop your child off at 7:40, they could be in the classroom until the rest of the students come in by 8 o'clock. And so they're going to want to have something to do. So we're going to recommend that everybody carry a free reading book, their own personal independent reading book, fiction or nonfiction or whatever they'd like to read. They can also draw. There's lots of other things that they can do. We won't be on screens during that time. So, planning through puzzle books, Sudoku books, things that, brain teasers, things that they want to do. They could also do a little bit of studying. It's kind of hard to talk about that now, studying for assessments, but that will come in time. So I think about arrival. Are there any questions, Amy Beth, about arrival? Arrival is a little cleaner, just cleaner in that it looks the same as what it has in the past.
There's one. What's the window for drop-off? If you clarify that again.
Yeah, our ideal window is 7:40, because teachers are coming in at 7:30 to be ready by 7:40 for students. And then, so you could drop off between 7:40 and 8 o'clock. It's ambitious to think it will only take 20 minutes in the first week of school, but it's our goal for that to be a 20-minute drop-off, so that our homeroom class and our time together with building community and getting kids acclimated and used to routines and just getting started will be in. And you saw that we have chapel on Wednesday morning. So 7:40 to 8 o'clock is what we're aiming for. Okay. So dismissal will look a little bit different. Not a whole lot different for you guys. On the inside of the building, it'll look very different, because we're going to dismiss from classes as opposed to gathering in the hallways, because we're not going to do anything that has us gathering in big groups. The homeroom class will be the biggest group there is. So the middle schoolers will stay in their classrooms. We'll still use a walkie-talkie to call, and on the inside of the building, they'll get called out of their classroom and come. So initially, for the first car to come, it might take a little bit longer for the students to come on out, but they'll be coming straight out. You never know. If you have a middle schooler, you know how long it can take them to come out sometimes. So I actually I'm very optimistic that this might take less time. I will tell you, they'll come out the same doors that they entered. And there was something else I wanted to say about this. Cars, where you can park. So because our lower school friends, so our early education primary school friends, are going to be using the primary school drive that goes back to the back circle for them. We're going to, you as parents, the first person, if you've been the person who prides yourself on being at the beginning of the car line, and I was that person when my kids were in middle school before I started teaching again, you're going to actually have to stop where the stop sign holder usually is, at the crosswalk, where the parking lot comes out into the circle. So we're going to stop our cars there. And I'll send you a map. I love to draw strip maps. I was a Transportation Army officer, and I love to draw strip maps. I'll draw you maps so you know. Our buses and vans are going to pull up on the car line circle, and those kids are going to load first. And then the car line will slither kind of along that car line. If you have a middle schooler and you have a lower schooler, you'll pick up your middle schooler first, who's come out of the middle school doors. Just like before, you'll drive up and you'll get your lower schooler. If you also have someone in pre-K, preschool, or kindergarten, then you'll keep going and you'll drive down to the early education primary school drive and get them. They will not come out because remember, we're using the same doors and they're only going to use the doors on the end so that we can be safe. So car line might take you a little bit longer as you think about what you plan after school. And then we'll follow our way out. We're going to have to be patient. This is another place where as a community, we can help each other. We can help each other understand it could take longer. We can help each other understand that we need to be patient while, somebody's picking up or, whatever it requires. I have no doubt we'll do it, but I do think it's good for us to remind. Amy Beth, I see we have a question.
We do. We have a couple questions. I'm going to stick with the one about when do we hear about bus pickup time and location, since we're talking about arrival and dismissal. If you can address that, please.
That is a good question, and I don't know. I don't know if anyone else knows the answer to that. I do know that I just proofread for Rose Crum the email that's going out to people that has some information. But maybe Matt or Barry, you can answer that, or.
I was just in a meeting a little bit earlier with all of the bus drivers and Rose Crump. So she is sending out information shortly about the bus routes, and so that will be coming out. I don't have the exact time, but it should be pretty quickly. We just had a meeting about it earlier today.
Okay. Yeah. And on the buses, I will tell you that obviously we can't have as many people on the vans and the transportation, the buses, as we've had before for safe distancing. Although if you think about it, if you have siblings, of course they can be, because they're their own little cohort. So and lots of cleaning of vehicles before they start, during, while they're after every ride. Kids will sit in the same seats, so lots of thought going into the safety of that. Go ahead, Amy Beth.
All right. So we have a couple of other. Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to mention about the cleaning of the buses. One, they've all been spot cleaned. They will be cleaned and sanitized each day in the morning and in the afternoon after they've been after the kids have been dropped off. So folks don't need to be concerned about what the condition of those will be.
Yep. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Amy Beth.
Okay, a few more questions. They're not related to transportation. Are you finished with transportation?
I only have 2 more comments about early departures and late arrivals for kids. So you can judge. You tell me, should I speak to that first or answer questions first?
Finish your arrival dismissal, and then we can open up to questions.
That sounds great. Okay. A couple notes about early departure and late arrival. We understand that things happen and we are going to have early departures for things and late arrivals. What I would ask of you is if we can minimize that will be the easiest thing for your children. So if we think about the kids are going to be out in learning spaces outdoors, and they don't want to miss out on anything. We know this. I would just ask that we need to communicate as early in advance as possible with that, so that a teacher who's planning to be outside for 2 hours doing a unit on, forestry health, knows that they need to make sure they wrap up by a certain time because they need to walk everybody back. You also can talk with your teacher that they might be able to meet, I don't know. We have to work through. This is one of the things we're going to have to work through. But I would say if you can minimize that, it's best. Middle schoolers, even if they act like they don't want to be in school, they really don't want to miss school. They don't want to miss the social piece of it. They don't want to miss the instruction piece of it. I mean, for many of them right now, they haven't necessarily built the skills. So for them to be in person is easier for them to try to get the information later. They're pleasers. They want to do well for everybody. So that's kind of my own plug for that. And just your communication, I've said this to teachers all summer long, we're going to be communicating with each other more than we ever have. And that we're actually living that now for sure. And I would ask the same thing of you, our parent and guardian community. And you guys are amazing about it anyways, but if you could just put that a little bit more in the forefront of your thinking and planning. So go ahead, Amy Beth. All right, I'm ready for the question.
All right, so 2 so far. From MH, this may have been addressed at the beginning of the meeting, but when should we expect to hear about homeroom teachers? For example, student orientation, locker day, if this is happening?
No, that's a great question. So I'm sharing class lists with parents and guardians on Friday. It'll be later on Friday because I'm trying to wait until our last new students. You know, everyone wants to be on the list. And I'm trying to help our newest families and newest students feel included. So I'm going to wait till the last possible moment on Friday to send out class lists. You're actually going to get all the class lists for the entire school. Every parent's going to get that. I think that will help in your connecting with each other and connecting kids with each other. Your kids may have noticed already that that Google Meet is back online, and that can really, for students, it's back online, and that can be really helpful for them to be able to feel connected in that way and kind of gain momentum. So Friday afternoon. It could be Friday evening. Again, I'm going to wait as long as I possibly can because I want to be as inclusive of our new families and also our families who are trying to decide, you know, what it is, how they want to go about this, because everybody's got a little bit different situation. So good question. I didn't put in the slide because I figured someone would ask. So whoever asked it, thank you. And all
right, we have another question from MH.
Second part of that question was about orientations. Middle school teachers will be communicating with you fairly soon after that. And you can earmark September 1st. So we can't do locker day and orientations day the same way, but the middle school teachers, and maybe somebody else wants to speak to this, but they've been working really hard to have a plan that will help you and your student get the information you need, but also allow them to put their things in their locker. I will say that we're going to leave decorating of lockers for right now, I believe, until another time, because we don't want to we're not trying to come up with reasons that we're going to gather in locker areas. And I have to tell you, locker decoration is one of them. So hold that thought, keep the momentum and the excitement for that, and help your child keep that excitement. For right now, we're gonna wait on the decoration piece. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. Are there plans for special events like the middle school field trips / overnights to be replicated in some fashion?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been in conversation with lots of teachers. The short answer is yes, but the caveat to that is I don't know what it'll look like. There's a lot of, I was just speaking with Senor Caro the other day, and we were talking about Google Meets where we can do an online cooking class together as families or as students. We were talking about, she's in contact with some schools in South America and Central America, and connecting students to each other because their students want to connect. They're isolated just like we are. I've talked to other teachers. There's virtual field trips that we can do and then have discussions afterwards. We might need to replay a middle school talent show long before the spring. Who knows? I loved it. So we're thinking about those kinds of things. Encourage your child to bring those ideas into school. I've been working with Mr. Ryan Brown, who is a leader of student government, and we will be practicing a form of student government, but not the same exactly what we've done because that it was predicated on all of us getting together. But we're going to have something where student voice still is paramount to what we do. So next time you eat dinner and you have kids talking about those ideas, encourage your child to bring those into school when they come. Definitely. Yeah.
We've got another question from the Stevens family. At the end of the last school year, there was talk of a way to do the missed 4th grade moving up day to the beginning of this school year.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that? Is it able to happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ms. Stevens. So the presumption there was that we were hoping that we wouldn't be in this situation where we're locked down and we can't be in groups. So I don't actually know that. I don't know how to answer that question other than to say we'll see. Because a lot of that, the thrill of that is the group and the accepting in of big groups of the smaller group and accepting in. So we're going to keep talking about that. at the moment, it's not going to look like what we might have liked it to look like. We may delay it. We may come up with something totally different. It's probably not the answer you want right now, but that's the honest answer.
Any other questions, please post them in the chat box.
Okay. All right. I didn't see the number go up, so I'm assuming that right now we're still at 21. Well, thank you for coming today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for asking your questions. Continue to ask. It makes us better. I was saying to someone the other day, I'm an incredibly, good or bad, I'm an incredibly meticulous, detail-oriented person. There are a lot of details with COVID-19. And then you just add to the rest of that, the overlay of just a regular August. And we have a lot of things going on. I see a question. So I'll answer the question about sports here in just a second. And so thank you for coming today. Really, really appreciate it. We're enthusiastic about having students back on campus. We're going to be careful. I'm also, I'm very serious about keeping, it's going to feel very locked down. And that's something, we're doing a lot of social emotional training with teachers for them, but also for students during in-service. And part of the motive behind that is because we know that this is going to feel isolating. Even for all the efforts that we make, it's going to feel isolating. And so I think the more that we can talk and the more that we can stay in communication with each other and making us better, I think those are good things. So there's a question about sports. So we know that DIAA, the Delaware Interscholastic Sports Association, has said no sports until at least January. And so at the beginning in September, we will not be offering. We also don't know what we don't know. So we're not going to offer, but we are working on a plan. And Barry, I don't know, he stepped out. Some of the thinking that goes with this is that we might be able to do some clinics, like skills clinics, and in small groups with people, with students. So those are things that we're thinking about. Amy Beth.
You have a couple other questions. So
Sure.
What would recess look like? And
Yep.
Maybe there's a question about winter concert programs, and maybe address the events that are listed on the calendar that may or may not be happening. So recess first.
Yep, recess happens during the 11:30 to 1 o'clock time. Every homeroom will have a recess bag, so they're using their own equipment. It could happen, so a teacher's teaching during that 90-minute period, and if they could teach for 20 minutes, they could break for lunch, and then they could go back to teaching. A lunch and recess, that is. They could take it out onto the soccer field and their homeroom could use the goals. They could go out to the outdoor classroom. They could go walk out to the front. They could bring in towels and sit under trees. Recess can look like a lot of things. We're having to reimagine what we thought about what playtime looks like and where it is. Like I like to think of we're thinking of our campus as being an entire playground. And so that'll look different. And kids will be in the same group of kids. They'll have a different teacher each day though, because it depends on who they have during the 11:30 block. So.
Okay, can you address the winter concert program?
Yeah, right now we don't have a winter program where we'd all gather. Mr. Ryan and I have spoken a bit about thinking about how do we give kids opportunities to perform in authentic ways when it isn't that, because that is one way to do it, but there are other ways to do that. So there's recording ways. There's the opportunity. Chaplain Hannah and I were talking about kids recording their playing and being able to play it during chapel. So we're trying to think and be creative about the ways that we can give kids authentic performance opportunities with singing and playing instruments and sharing their gifts and talents. So, but right now in the calendar, I believe has been updated now and doesn't have those on there for right now. So again, we could, I have an Army background, so I kind of worst case plan, but I'm not an eternal optimist. So we can put things back on a calendar like that. So Mr. Ryan will still be working with instrumentalists, still be writing music for kids. And he's actually going to teach all the way down to 3rd grade. So we actually have the opportunity to build our musicians from an earlier age, which is really exciting. What else, Amy Beth?
We have one last question from the Townsend family. Will a child's individual schedule also be included with the teacher assignments? If not, when would we receive that information?
So that's a great question. You won't. So an individual child's schedule is their homeroom schedule, and that's how I'm going to provide it. And honestly, when you see it, it may be handwritten, because as I've told the teachers, we may have to shift 2, 3, 4 times. And before I put a bunch of work into creating something that looks pretty, like that's electronically pretty, I'm going to go old school for a little bit and see. So you can look to get those schedules when you have your orientation with your teacher, when your teacher reaches out to you. And this is true in middle school and lower school and primary school. Teachers will be reaching out to you, and homerooms will be doing their own kind of orientation, so to speak, and having a time to come. But for middle school, the middle school has decided that's going to be on the 1st in the afternoon between 1 and 3. I know that we have one advisory that may have to do that at a different time, because our teachers are also parents and are taking kids to college and are doing all sorts of really exciting things. So we may have someone who has to kind of shift that time a little bit, but the time is from 1 to 3. And that was actually just decided on the other day. They've been planning for a while. I want you to know your teachers, our teachers, have been meeting for weeks now online together in small groups, in big groups, doing their own work on campus. There's just been a lot of things going on to get prepared for the start of school. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and let everybody go. Thank you again for being here. And if I'm going to see you tomorrow in the lower school presentation, you'll hear many of the same things, but I bet the questions might be a little bit different. And it will also be recorded, so don't feel like you have to come, but we'd love to see you. And if you're a middle school parent, you just want to come hang out with us lower school folks, come on. And we'll see you then, okay? All right. Feel free to unmute and say goodbye if you want.